The champion quickly goes through. Glasgow as well.
I'd like to introduce to you someone who's not afraid to shy away from a challenge. Born and brought up in Dunfermline, she started her sporting career as a gymnast before moving on to hockey and playing hockey at university. She later took up cycling, and from there, that was where her career took off. With a Commonwealth silver medal to her name in Delhi 2010, she made a name for herself by transitioning from track cycling to road cycling, a sprint athlete changing to become an endurance athlete, a very unique change. Her story is one of triumph, overcoming obstacles and proving the right mindset and support can achieve your goal. After enduring a horrific injury 6 months prior to home games in Glasgow 2014, she had shown what the power of determination can do. A multiple Scottish and British champion and medalist, she is one of Britain's most tenacious athletes. Now retired, she has kept herself busy with her business, Dynamic Fitness, showcasing her love of passing on her well-earned knowledge to all those who want to improve their physical movement and fitness. I'd like to welcome Charline Jones, but to those Scottish athletes might know her Charline Joyner, to the Honest Athlete podcast.
Hi, good to be having me.
Thank you for joining us. Honestly, I'm looking forward to this episode, that's for sure. First of all, we always like to ask our athletes that come on how they got into sport in general. I don't want to say cycling because we've already mentioned, well, Hannah already mentioned gymnastics and hockey. So if you could just give us a brief, how did you get into sport?
Yeah, I mean, can I just say that introduction was just phenomenal? Like, if I could just be introduced like that all the time from now on, that would be great just in life. Nice, Hannah. So how did I get into it? Basically, really sporty dad. Dad, he just... It's like I need to tell Dad's life story to tell mine. No, but basically he was the GB coach for triathlon, and he did Ironman. He also was the Scotland volleyball coach. He did fitness coaching for some professional football teams, Scottish rugby team. Yeah, I mean, he was just a fitness fanatic, and like his knowledge was incredible. So we kind of grew up in an active, I grew up in an active family. So my big brother, actually, he ended up playing rugby for Scotland. And my sister played age group hockey for Scotland. And then my path took me to cycling eventually. So we just basically we tried all sports as kids, you know, swimming, gymnastics, tennis, skiing. Dad was a ski instructor as well. I mean, it could have went any way. Yeah, but just a sporty family, really.
That's pretty cool. So it would have been fascinating to know if you could have like parallel lives of what you could have gone through and all the different sports that you could have tried out. I guess one of the questions I could ask is, you know, would heptathlon or, you know, like a multi-sport event like that, or the modern pentathlon, would something like that have ever crossed your mind?
So, do you know, the funny thing is, even though I grew up being really sporty, I never wanted to be an elite athlete. I just loved sport. I just loved being active. And then it wasn't until, so like gymnastics was just like, you know, little club competitions, things like that. Same with hockey, was like district levels, not even Scottish level. And then it wasn't until cycling that I realised I could be quite good at this. So, and it was almost like, because the path into cycling is straight in, you get to know the people who can help you get to the top. Like, you can enter like the British Championships, like no matter your level. Like, so that's the beauty of it is, well, you obviously have to be accredited. You have to be able to ride the velodrome. But you can enter the Scottish Championships 3 weeks after you first got on a bike. Like, so it was really inclusive sport. It's amazing that you can just literally, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go to the Scottish Champs next week. I mean, no, maybe cross-country running, or like if you're really good at it and you just like I've hit this time, yeah, I'm going to go, or I don't know, like, but anyway, but can we change the question to like, what would I have liked to have done?
What would you like to have done, Charline?
That's a good one. I would have liked to have skiing, like some sort of skiing, like downhill skiing. You know, not the slalom where you're like the one where there's like 3 turns and you're just flying down the hill. That's what, if I did like what I would have loved to have done.
Okay, so is this whilst the Winter Olympics is on? Are we trying to like shout out for, can we get Charline on the team? Is that what you want us to go for here?
Oh,
okay.
Oh my God, I never even thought of that.
Sign a petition.
No, I don't think I could go back to like elite athlete training. Oh,
no. Okay, right, okay. What an answer to a question. This is amazing. So you get into cycling. At what age was that, Charline?
19.
Now, is that late or is that normal for cycling?
Cycling's a funny one. You can start when you're, obviously I knew how to ride a bike. On summer holidays, we would ride our bikes all the time. And really, it was, yeah, we would ride our bike all the time. So the way that I got into it was because of I hurt my knee playing hockey, and then cycling was the way that I kind of rehabbed it, and then I ended up going along to the track with my dad, and that was how I got into it. Yeah. And
so you obviously, well, I presume that you showed signs of, like, early signs of, okay, I could be quite good here. And so how does it work? How did it work in terms of timeline to then make teams and stuff like that and progress?
I mean, like, some kids start when they're really young, and then some people come in from like transitioning from other sports, power sports if they're sprinters, or like triathletes come on board to the cycling program. It's a really good sport for like talent ID and stuff, finding talent and then seeing if you can develop it onto the velodrome. So yeah, the timeline, it really depends on how strong, and depends on your physiology, really. It can be a year, but then you have to learn the tactics and things. So you can be really fast on a bike, but then there's tactics in all the races, so you have to learn that aspect of it. And that, I guess that's the side that comes with a bit more time and experience in races.
So you were saying that you need the time and the experience, but from when you started cycling, as you say, from 19, going to the Commonwealth Games was not that far after you'd started up. So at what point did you think, you know what, I'm going to go for the Commonwealth Games? Or did you have that desire and drive, or was it something that just came about for you?
So the Commonwealth Games, I was 22. So yeah, 3 years. Basically, there was a Girls for Gold programme that British Cycling were running in the kind of used for the London Olympics. And I heard about it in the last phases of it going on, but applied anyway, and they took me straight into the last phase of it, which then Victoria Williamson, who went on to be an amazing track sprint cyclist, and myself got through. So we were training with the team, the British cycling team, and this was like 2009, so the year before the Commonwealth Games. And they kind of took us on to, as a trial run, coached us in Manchester on the GP setup, and then kind of sent me home and said, right, you've learned, now keep training till nationals in like 5 months or something, and then we'll see how you get on. And then, you know, this was like my first 1.5 years, you know, I'm sure I raced Victoria Pendleton at British that year. And I was like, you know, she's just fresh out of Beijing Olympics. And I'm just like, what am I doing? What am I doing? So, yeah, from then, I was like, oh, I must be quite good. So they were like, oh, Commonwealth Games is next year. Why don't we go for that? And I was like, give it a go. Like, it's all just kind of like, it was never like a dream. It was like, oh, like, I'll give it a go. And then, and then it kind of, I didn't get on GB, but I beat one of the riders who was on the sprint program, but I didn't get on. And I was really disappointed. And then I was like, oh, it must be like if the face fits. Like, anyway, so I was like, fine. But then my mum's French. So I was like, Mum, like, what are the chances of me becoming French on a bike? And she was like, I'll phone the coach up now. We didn't know who he was, but we looked online, found his number. And my mum was like, look, this is what my daughter's times. Like, she tried to get on GB, they didn't take her. Would you take her? And they were like, well, yeah, she can come for a trial. So went for the trial for a week in Paris. They've got, I don't know if you know it, Hannah, Inset, their base is like an Olympic village where they stay all year and all the different sports train there. It's amazing. So like you sleep there, you eat there, you learn there, like your schoolwork, or like if kids are there as well, and you train. So it's like a massive like ex-military complex that they've made into this place for athletes. So I went there for a week, did the tests, ended up smashing the tests, got like, I'm sure they said I had the fastest ever leg speed that they'd seen a French woman have, which was RPM. I don't know about RPM, but it was like 256 RPM, right? And I was like, okay, cool. I was like, I'll give it a go. So they were like, will you come? That was in December. They were like, will you come back end of January for a 3-month trial? And I was like, yes, Paris for 3 months. Like, get to speak French. Like, I wasn't even like, I'm going to be training, but I was like, just Paris. I was like, yeah. This was 2010, by the way. You know when the games were because you were there. And so this was January, February, March. And just my improvement was just astronomical. It was massive. Like, because I was there every day training, it was only 3 months, right? So they said, you know, took me to the races in the end in the summer, and I was like going well. I still had a lot to learn, like for tactics. So then they said, look, okay, we're willing to take you on, but you need to strip your British passport, so you can no longer be at all British. You need to be fully French, and you need to pay us like £1,200 or something a month. So their athletes were getting their local like council and a local sponsor to pay that for them, whereas I wasn't going to be like Dunfermline. Here, do you want to pay for me to be French, right, for France? So then I was like, well, I'm not rich enough to be French, so I'll just have to be Scottish. So then I was like, right, Common Games, like, let's go. Yes, straight into it, went to the training camps, and then went to Delhi, and then competed at the games. That's that story.
What a story. I mean, you could literally end the podcast there. It'd still be the best thing I think we've ever been a part of a conversation. Wow. Okay. So lots of questions. First of all, I would love, well, you got a silver at the Commonwealth Games in Delhi, which is amazing. So I'd love to know more about that. And my other question is a little bit off topic, but you seem really chilled out about things. And you seem like you sort of just went with how things went. But I would love to know, particularly on race day, this kind of laid back, go with the flow type personality. Is that what you were like before competing? Or were you quite, well, a different kind of athlete? Sorry, two very different questions there. But silver medal at COMMONWEALTH, B, are you this chilled all the time?
Yeah. So Commonwealth Games silver medal was the first year that they had the women's team sprint in the games. And it was great. My team sprint partner started the same year as me, and she'd transferred over from GB judo. So she had a lot of power, and she was man one on the track. So that's when they start in the gate. And man one, woman one, like goes, I'm on top, I'm kind of up the track a bit, and we start at the same time, but I slot in behind her, and basically she toes me for the first lap. I try and stay behind to get the slipstream. You don't actually need to be that close to get slipstream, but behind her to get pulled along a bit and save energy, and then she peels off after a lap and I finish it. And yeah, it was just, we just needed to beat the Canadians to be in the silver gold ride-off, but we knew we weren't going to win it because it was against the world champions, the Australians, Anna Mears and Carlin Culloch, and they are just phenomenal. So we got silver, and I just on the podium after, I just remember being like, oh my God, like I'm standing in the queue to go and get my medal, and Anna Mears is in front of me, and she just turned to me, and I remember being like, oh my God, I can't do an Aussie accent. No, I'm not going to try it. She's just like, oh my God, I love your nails. And I had like Scotland flags on them. And I just was like, oh my gosh. Anna Mears is talking to me. And I was like, oh, thanks, I love yours too. Well done for winning the gold. And then we got the medal. And yeah, it was kind of a big story because Jenny and I just came out of nowhere, and then continued our journey after that. So then the other question was, what was it again?
Are you this chilled back and easygoing?
So, and like on race day, I mean, I do get nervous. Because I am so competitive that like I need to win. I'm just like I'm so competitive, like, but the way for me always to do well was not to put the pressure on myself. So I would try to think of it as like still a race that I want to win, but I needed to be relaxed before. So I'd put like, some funky music on, always headphones in, trying to stay relaxed, not looking about too much, just trying to stay in my own funky little world, and just keep the nerves down to a minimum. I didn't need that much like rave music, it was more just like fun music in the head for me at that level, which was the right place for me to do. Like, and that was where GB, I didn't really like being in the GB setup because they were like, you must be serious. And I was like, well, I don't do well when I'm in that zone. Whereas the French, and they've been like Olympians, world championships, champions and all this, they were like so chilled. They were my vibe. And I was just like thriving off it, like at races and things. So yeah, I would do better when I was more chilled. Yeah, so that's that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's really, really quite a clear answer. So I've watched track cycling on TV before, and I find it very, very fascinating. I know the different names. You've got the Karen, individual pursuit, and scratch race. I don't quite understand the rules of it, especially when you've got the one where you've got the person in front and they're constantly looking over their shoulder, and it's, are they going to go, yep, no, and then all of a sudden there's like a mad sprint for the end. Was there any particular one that was like your favorite event to do? And could you possibly like describe the sort of different disciplines, but like maybe one or two lines if it's possible, just to give us, those who don't know track cycling, as much a bit of an understanding as to what the different disciplines are?
Yeah. So I was a racer, which meant I needed someone else on the track. So like the individual events, even like the one that I won Medaling, like the team sprint, like that wasn't my favorite event at all. It was so boring. Anyway, the ones that I love are the ones that, like you said, you know, the cat and mouse one, but that's not my favorite. Favorite is the keyring. Like I was like elbows out, give me 5 other people trying to like go for the same space. Like I'm mental. So that's what I loved on the sprint side. But when I changed to endurance, I loved the Madison, which was where you have a partner and you hold hands and you sling each other in. So you have and your 2 Scottish riders would be on the same team. So I'll explain the keyring first. The keyring, I don't even know what the rules are anymore. It changes like every few years, but you start, say there's 6 to 8 of you, and you start on the start finish line, staggered up the track, and someone's holding you. And then the little derny thing, it's like a motorbike, but it's not. It's like a bike with a motor and the pedal. It's called a derny. Anyway, so that bike comes past you, then the gunshot goes for start, then you all have to get behind the bike in the order that you are in on the track, because you take a card before telling you where to be on the track. It's just like potluck. Then the bike gradually speeds up to about 40 kilometers an hour, and then it peels for like, I think it's 5 laps now or 4, and then it peels off, so that as soon as the derny peels off, as in like is no out, so no one's allowed to go in front of it until that time, then you can, so like say for example the lap leading up to the bike peeling off, you're at the back and you're like, well, I don't want to be at the back. You might start to move up the outside of the line to get in front, but then obviously you're trying to look, those that are in front are trying to look behind their shoulder to see what's happening, see who's making a move, see if anyone's making a move. And then when the bike's off, it's up to that person who's in front to like dictate the pace. So it just depends, like if you're a type of sprinter who likes going for a long one, who likes going like 2.5 laps out and sprinting for that long, or if you are someone who likes a last minute surge. But then you've got to be careful with that, because you've got to time that surge well. You've also got to dodge crashes if there's crashes, or you've got to get in the right position. And everyone, when it's like high level, is around about the same kind of speed. So you've got to get it spot on. So love that. There's a bit of hustle and bustle to get position in, like once derny goes off, and then when it's a sprint, it's like you know, everyone free for all, let's go. So love that one as a sprinter. Endurance, I loved the Madison, just because it was team, and there's not much team events on the track, where racing team events, like not time trial events where you're like in a team going for time, but actually trying to get points. So it's like, it depends. I don't know how many laps it is now, but I think it's about 120 laps, and you're on the bottom of the track. Say me and Hannah are going for gold, right? We're going to Madison, and I'm in the race, okay, with everyone else who's like number 1 in their team, and you're like number 2, you're up there. Not in terms of ability, just like number 1 and number 2. Number 1s are in the race. Okay, don't worry, Hannah. And then as you have, it's mental, but basically you have to be in the right position in the line. Look at where your teammate is, but also see if like there's another team that's behind us that needs to change over at the same time. The person who is at the top, like riding around slowly, needs to get in position. Like say if you're coming around the bottom and then the person behind you's teammates in front of them, you need to get in a position so they come down the track, so that you change at the same time and don't cause a crash. So it's absolutely, you need to watch this event. It is mental. It's all about tactics. It's all about when you look at when they're changing. If you've got it at different times, then it might mean that, like, you want to attack and get a lap in the field, or you're just going to chip away at the points for the sprints every lap. You've got, say, 10 sprints. First across the line gets 5, then second gets 3, and then 2, and then 1. And then you accumulate the points of whoever in the bunch, that is the racers, whoever crosses the line first. So Team Scotland get 5 points because we won that sprint. And you just accumulate it over 10 points. But then you can also get 20 laps for lapping the field. So going ahead of the bunch and getting to the back of the main bunch.
Is that the event that our British girls smashed at the Olympics?
Yes. And do you know what? You're going to love this. So I love it. And I just tell everyone because I feel so proud. But Katie Archibald, I did her first ever marathon with her. I was her first partner. It was great.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you for that overview. It's really interesting because obviously a lot of people watch these things and don't necessarily know the rules too much. But that event that you last described, I'm always sat watching the TV like, I don't have a clue what's going on here, but I'm enjoying it. So it's great. I think one of the most important things that I like to read or see in someone's story is, unfortunately, the tough times as well. And I think you probably know what's coming next because obviously you are this amazing personality. And so for something like injury, and it was a serious injury that happened, that knocks you in so many ways, psychologically, physically, all those kinds of things. So I would love for you to kind of just explain what happened and, the process of that and how you dealt with that.
Yeah, so I changed from sprint track cycling to endurance in the winter of 2010. So I didn't even give myself a chance for sprinting, really. I don't know if I'd call it my biggest regret, but maybe I would, don't know. Anyway, went into endurance, and basically, the Glasgow Commonwealth Games was 2014, and that was a massive goal. I ended up going on an endurance camp with Team Scotland to Girona in January 2014, so the year of the Commonwealth Games. Commonwealth Games was like July, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Hannah. And then basically in one of the second day ride, there was a massive pile-up and I was at the back of the bunch of the road riders coming through at pace when the crash happened in front of me, so couldn't avoid it. And we're going down a slight decline, and just everyone went up. Everyone crashed, and then I remember seeing one of the girls crashing and thinking, "Oh my God, Kerry, that's such a shame." Next minute, I was flying through the air. Like, I literally remember thinking that, like, "Oh no, oh no, it's me too." Yeah, so got catapulted into the air, landed onto my back on a bike. And we don't know whether it was the impact of that or the catapulting of me unclipping from my pedals and being that tight from being on the bike for like 4 or 5 hours. Who knows? But I landed on my back and I broke my back. So the lower 3 vertebrae, the transverse processes, so the wing type parts that come off, they were broken. So that's where a lot of the nerves go into. So I just remember thinking that I was like, I think I've broke my leg. I can't feel my leg. But when you're like, I can't feel my leg, surely you would think, oh, my back. But it never crossed my mind. But the good thing is, in the cycling team, we actually had a nurse and a practicing surgeon. So one of the girls had a severe concussion, like the nurse went to her and then the surgeon came to me and was looking after me, did everything right, kept my legs not moving. And they managed to get me off the bike, which was horrific. Locals started coming out and like putting blankets over me and things, but just to keep me warm till the ambulance got there. But I was literally in the middle of the road. So like across, the middle of the road, like the lines. I was like across the middle of the road. No better place to crash. So traffic was getting redirected and stuff. But yeah, that's what happened. And then I spent 10 days in Spanish hospital, trying to, first of all, just recovering and then learning how to walk again. And yeah, and then my goal was, what got me going was like, oh my gosh, I really want to go to the Commonwealth Games because it's in Scotland. And also like, I really want to fly back with the team. I didn't want to stay longer. So they were like, if you can walk this many steps, then you can fly back with the team. They just got me a wheelchair for the flight and things. But yeah, it was a tough old time. And yeah, but managed to get home with the team and then recover well when I got home, just through lots of... I couldn't train for like 3 months, really. So I was doing lots of visualization in my bed.
I don't think you realise actually how impactful that is, because a lot of athletes, we have that routine, we know what's happening, and injury just throws a lot of our plans out the window. And the visualization, was that something that you consciously did because that your personality is so outgoing and you just take things in your stride? Was that something that came naturally to you, or was that suggested to you by someone?
So I had I don't know what you would call it, like a sports psychologist for years that I went to, with more just like, I always put a lot of pressure on me. I've got this kind of like easygoing, chilled kind of exterior, but I'm competitive and I put a lot of pressure on myself. So it was just, anyway, phoned him when I was in Girona and he helped me through that. But then he was the one who said, look, you need to do lots of visualization. So he was an NLP practitioner, neuro-linguistic programming, just where you do like visualization and things. So it was his kind of idea for me to do that. And actually, as soon as he said it, I was on board because I knew how important it was, because I studied at university. So I did do it quite a lot anyway. But he was the one that, he was like, well, this is the time to use it. And yeah, and then I just did it like 3-4 times a day because I couldn't do anything else.
Building up that strength of that visualization, that psychology toughness as well, I guess, to get you through the rehab is, I still find it hugely inspiring. And also I'm in awe of anyone who can, take that level of dedication, considering, as I say, your plan goes out the window, and with such a really severe and quite impactful injury in itself. And I still can't quite get my head around the fact that you were out of training for 3 months and you still qualified. You still had the opportunity to go to the Commonwealth Games for Glasgow, got to wear the gorgeous blue opening ceremony with the tartan. Won't go into too much with the kit. Certainly made it memorable as a part of the team. But, has that experience given you confidence, or have you been able to use that for, when you were kind of finishing off your career, even after the games? Did you use that experience to better yourself as an athlete?
Yeah, I think that when you go through something that's so disappointing and impactful, and mentally you go through something big, it can change you as an athlete. And I can honestly say that I just kept getting better after that. Like my training just leveled up. You know, I did struggle after that with some mental issues, like mental health issues, but that was more due to the people surrounding me in that team, and that's actually why I stopped cycling, because of the people. It wasn't because of the sport. So, you know, to get through training and that kind of aspect, I was able to push even harder after the injury. So that was good. But yeah, definitely makes you stronger. So if you're out there and you're having a tough time, just push on through, because you are going to be fine and stronger.
I love that. That is so true. And although it's, you know, it's tough at the time, what you get from it is just amazing. And it's just that patience and appreciating that afterwards. And it sounds like you've done that. So that's amazing. Now, as an English athlete at the Glasgow Commonwealth Games, I was like, it is a home games, but it's kind of not, because I know the Scottish guys are loving it. So, but for you to have qualified is a win anyway, getting there, obviously, after everything that you went through. But what was the home games like for you?
Oh my gosh, it was just so amazing. Like just to be racing in the velodrome, like when with the crowd, it was just full. And whenever like Katie or I or Eileen like got to the front of the pack, it was so loud. It was just so loud. And I felt like I was floating on the bike because the crowd was just pushing us on. It was amazing. And, you know, the opportunity to actually compete at home games is crazy. And just to be able to have your family there, your friends, like my granny actually flew over from France, and it was just amazing. So yeah, such a special moment. Even the road race, like it was horrible weather, but people were still lining the streets, and it was just amazing. Yeah, it was a good one. It's good to be able to, you know, show what you've got and try and make your country proud. And the cool thing about cycling as well is you can get so close to them. Like on the streets, like the road cycling, you're literally there, like you can give them a pat on the back, like don't do that, but you can you know, they're in touching distance, so you can shout something at them and they'll hear you. So it's brilliant. Yeah, it was such a great experience, and feel really lucky to have pushed on to qualify to go.
I did get a little bit of a taste of the Scottish crowd at the commies when Hannah won the 400 medley on the first day, and it was like, okay, there's no roof left on the building. This is good. We're now in an outdoor pool. It's great. And it was really sunny, so that would have been great anyway. But I can imagine that feeling of just competing and being there, actually being there was amazing. You just mentioned that you retired because of the people. But obviously, one of our questions today, and we'd love to know, was the reason maybe behind the retirement, or what decisions obviously led to that, to you coming to that point.
Yeah. So I love track cycling, like the people, the crew, like it's so much more cool and relaxed than, like, believe it or not, than the road. The road is like there's so many fingers that can be pointed, like because you're racing in a team but only one person gets to win, it's difficult. So, you know, I loved racing for others. Like I loved people racing for me, but I wanted it to be even. I wanted to be able to help develop riders and help them win as well. Whereas in the final kind of team that I raced on, I was promised things like that didn't end up happening. Like all the pressure was like, again, put on me and this other girl to win. And which was, I was like, right, well, like, I'm just going to have to go with that. But then, it's not that I didn't want to win, but I just wanted it to be more fair. And what happened? Yeah, so it was I had been training so well, like my numbers were unbelievable, like I was flying, I was aiming for this race, and it just, like, I went round to recce the course, when you just ride round the course to see what it's like, with the team, and I literally said to them, I was like, I am floating on my pedals, like I'm not even having to try to like come up these hills, like I've peaked for the right time. And they were like, great, because I was going for that race, they were going to help me. Anyway, I crashed in the first lap of the race, 9 laps. And then, so it was pretty bad, like someone's chain ring like dug into my back. Like it wasn't like, my back wasn't ripped open, but it was like, the chain ring did go in a bit. And like, I was like, you know, major like trauma to my scapula. So I couldn't get out the saddle and put weight on it. So, but I ended up getting back on the bike, chasing on, getting to the front group again. And then just like, yeah, and then I ended up crashing again in the same race, got a concussion, couldn't finish. So that's just how racing goes. But anyway, as the kind of season went on, I was, the team manager was kind of pushing me, and like, he was like, you know, you should be racing, you should be doing better. But I was like recovering from concussion. And then as I went back and I was doing better, I was in a lead group in another race, I crashed again. You'll never believe it. We went over a hill and there was horses walking towards us, like on the road. So I was at the back and everyone went off, so then took my front wheel off, and I got another concussion and like broke and dislocated my finger. And then like they ran up to me with a spare bike, and I was like, I'm not getting back on my bike. Like, so it was actually, for me, that was an awful experience. And I really want to stress that 95% of teams are not like that. So if you're looking to get in cycling, if you are in cycling, you're listening, you're like, God, that's not what it's like for me. This was just my own personal experience. I was really emotional because of the head knocks, and you know, there's within the, I never really got it checked. Well, I went to the hospital and they were just like, oh, just take it easy. Like, you know, there wasn't much checking of the head. And, you know, I raced like 2 days after I crashed, banged my head the first time. So there was not much concussion protocol in cycling back then. I think it's getting better now, which is great to see. But I did know that it was because of my head that things were difficult for me in, like, on the mental health side. It was probably because I banged my head a few times and everything was a bit more, but also the way I was being treated was unacceptable. So just still a lot of pressure. Like, I was getting maybe top 10s instead of top 5s, but like, yeah. So, you know, and things were said to me that were just, yeah, they were just unacceptable. So I couldn't take it anymore. And I ended up winning one of my last races, and it was a really big crit, and it was all over kind of Eurosport. And, you know, the team manager for once was just like, it's anyone's race. And I was like, I'm just going to win this. In my head, I was like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to win this. And I won it. And I just, like, literally so many other team managers and other riders from other teams came up to me, gave me a hug, said, Charline, you deserve that so much. You've had such a tough season. We've seen what's been happening. Like, but it was like, I was done emotionally, mentally. Oh, I need a break. So I think I left the team on mutual agreement and then joined another team, but was going to ride national crit championships. And I did, actually. I went down, but before that, I couldn't train because I felt so low for like 2 weeks, so I didn't train at all. And then I went down and I did like a lap, and then I just pulled out. Like I couldn't even race. I just apologized, and they were like, it's so fine, we know what's going on. Like, and then I never raced again. My plan was to do with that team was to race the Revolution series on the track that winter, and I was like, I'll do that and then I'll finish. But I couldn't even get back on my bike. Like, there was no motivation. There was nothing that was like, I just associated my bike with bad feelings. And, whether, it's probably a massive mixture between my mental health and the head knocks and how I kind of pushed through that, which I shouldn't have done, but didn't have much guidance there. And also just how I was treated with that from the management side. So, and then after that, ended up getting into a little bit of commentating, a little bit of hosting events, coaching professional cyclists, amateur cyclists, novice, and also, what else did I do? No, I think that's about it, yeah.
Your own business.
Oh, well, yeah, I ended up going to the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games as, this is a funny one, the Barbados cycling coach and manager, because there was only one rider. So I was her coach, and I went and did all that. But gosh, you've got so many meetings to go as, the countries that don't have the funding to have a person for team manager and coach and physio and mechanic. You've got to do all the jobs, go to all the meetings. So that was a good experience in helping little Amber go to her first Commonwealth Games, and it was great to be there again. Funny wearing the different colours. But it was good. And after that, I kind of stepped away from professional cycling totally. The only link I had left to it was watching it, which I enjoyed, following my friends who were still racing, and commentating and hosting. I wasn't involved directly anymore with the riders much. But now the business that I've got, it's called Dynamic Fitness, with a QUE at the end, Dynamique Française. And underneath it, you've got, so I host retreats, like wellness weekends that include like yoga, fitness, hill walks, cold water dipping, massage, amazing food, some meditation, gin tasting. Like, just that is like my biggest achievement since my silver medal, creating these wellness weekends, and I love them. Then I've got my online programs, 3 Hit Wonder, which is basically a platform where we have multiple instructors that do workouts from home that are just 15 to 30 minutes long. And it's HIIT, so it's high intensity interval training. And then also there's Pilates on it, and there's yoga, and there's just some equipment workouts with bands and kettlebells and things. And then my third piece of it is it's called Power Your Range. That's my first love. I have been looking into stretching and rehab and kind of prehab, and as you get older as an athlete, you're always looking, how can I prolong my body? And it is a mixture between mobility and yoga. It's mainly mobility. I did a few courses in functional range conditioning and functional range assessment, which have given me just the tools to create my own mobility program using their concepts of eccentric, isometric, concentric contractions, of the body. And it's really good for joint health. And it's a nice way of getting your kind of, it's not a stretch, it feels like a stretch. It can feel like a stretch, but actually you are strengthening your range in your joints. So if you don't have enough range, you'll get more range in your joints, and you'll strengthen all the muscles surrounding the joints. And if you want more, then you'll gain more doing that as well. Or if you have too much, you can learn to control your range.
That's awesome. I love as well the way that you describe the retreats, because I kind of feel the package itself is pretty much like you as an individual, you as a person, because there's lots of little bits that you can go and do. People can enjoy it. It's not the full commitment of we're just doing this one thing. There's lots of little tasters. And I kind of feel you as an individual, as you said, you never set out to be an elite athlete. You just love sport. And I feel that what you've taken from sport now moving into your business, you've kind of taken some really key components into that. I've got one little last question for you. And I guess it would be looking back at little Charline, 10, 11, 12 years, starting out maybe in your sport, what advice would you give her now with all that you've known and learned from your career?
You are good enough. You are good enough, and you can do it. Yeah, you are good enough. Because there's always that little, as an athlete, I don't know about you, Hannah, but no matter how good you are, there's always this little thing in your head that's like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And it doesn't come up. I mean, it doesn't come up often, but it's there. It's there sometimes. And there's that little bit of doubt. Yeah, you're good enough. And just to go for it. Yeah. And I think it's important as a youngster just to try as many things as you can. Try everything. You never know unless you try. You might not like the look of something, but try it. So many people are like, oh, not mobility. Ew. And then they come, they're like, that was amazing. And I'm like, well, I've just been trying to get you to do it for 6 months or 6 years. And they're like, yeah, I'll see you next week.
I absolutely love that ending there. I think, yes, so many people can listen to this whole episode really and learn loads from it. But that piece of advice for any athletes listening, yes, they all experience those thoughts, doubts, and all those kinds of things. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Just thank you, Charline, for coming on, sharing your story with us. It's always great to hear athletes like yourself who have got really interesting stories, and it wasn't all just straightforward. You know, you had to go through all of the highs and the lows and deal with them mentally, physically, and you've done that, and you've got a great story and are now doing great things from that, which is amazing. So just thank you. Thank you from both Hannah and I. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, that was great. It's always nice to share some knowledge and just tell my story. If anyone else gets something from it, then great. If you just enjoyed the story, then that's great too.
I'm sure they will. I know that me and Hannah definitely have. And hopefully we see you in the downhill skiing at some point in the future. But no, thank you for listening to the episode. It's been a fantastic one, and we look forward to seeing you next week.